Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Up in Smoke Part 7. Today we're going to be talking about the unsolved mystery of Susan Powell. When we last left off, we had talked about how while Joshua was living in Washington with his father Stephen, he would create a web page to give updates on his wife's disappearance and would completely control everything that was put into the web page and was constantly posting on the web page. And it should be no shock to anyone that he would basically use this web page as a way to more or less victimize himself and make himself seem innocent, when the police were unearthing a lot of evidence that Joshua May knew more than what he was leading on. He would eventually start telling people that everything that was happening to him was just a smear campaign created by Susan's family, the Mormon Church, and his estranged sister Jennifer, who after the disappearance of Susan had pretty much quit all contact with the Powell family, which again is completely ridiculous when you think about it, how he was so full of himself that he would think that everything was a smear campaign against him. And if you take every single thing that we have learned up until this point, you got to ask yourself, how is this a smear campaign? For starters, you took your kids camping in the middle of the night at 12:30. Not only did you do this, you did it on a Sunday when you had to work the next following day and you weren't known for ever calling out. And to just tell the police, oh, I just thought it was Friday. The second thing is, not only did you do this at 12:30 at night, you did this in the middle of a blizzard. What parent takes their 5- and 7-year-old child camping in a blizzard? That's the first thing. The second thing, when the police didn't know where you were, they went in the house and they saw a wet spot that 2 fans had been positioned trying to dry. The police would also find that whatever was on that spot, the person was trying desperately to clean up all evidence of. Then when they did further testing on that spot, they found DNA testing positive to your missing wife. Not to mention also DNA of a blood belonging to a third person, and all they knew was it wasn't Susan and it wasn't Joshua's. Then adding on the fact that when they investigated your family van, they found something made of bedrock, and the only thing that the police could come to conclusion was, even though they could not identify what was on the burnt bedrock, they would make the decision that they knew whatever that was on that bedrock, Joshua had tried to destroy all evidence of. They would also find Susan's cell phone inside the family van, but she just up and left with another guy. Who do you know that leaves would not only not take their clothes or belongings, but even their cell phone? Then the icing on the cake is the statements and confessions made by your 5-year-old son, and would tell the babysitter, oh, my mom's dead, and would even draw a picture and tell the babysitter that their mother was in the trunk of the van. But yeah, everything up until this point was just a smear campaign. By September of 2010, the police would learn that there was a spot right around the area that Joshua would say that he had actually taken his boys camping, and would say that the soil looked disrupted. So they would actually take some dogs over there to just kind of investigate to see if they could find a shallow grave, but unfortunately they wouldn't really find anything around that area. As I had said before, that this case had gotten a lot of media coverage, and Stephen would waste no time going on television and giving news interviews to pretty much anyone that would actually have him on TV. And it's around this time that he would start telling people about his and Susan's secret love affair, and would tell on these interviews that Susan was always overly sexual with him and was always flirtatious with him. And to his response, he would just tell people on camera that, hey, I'm not going to turn down a sexual encounter with a beautiful woman. He's saying that about his son's missing wife, just for future reference. And while Joshua was going around telling people that his wife was completely unstable, if you remember, Stephen would actually make a statement and say that he had proof from her diary when she was 15 showing how unstable she was. He would even go into detail that he had over 2,000 pages of her journals. And the police around this time had thought to themselves, well, maybe we should take a look into these journals, as it could hold crucial evidence to the investigation. They would present Stephen Powell a warrant to investigate his home in August of 2011. And they would find out why Susan was so uncomfortable around Stephen. And it is only fitting that we give him the name Creepy Steve. On this investigation, they would look into Stephen's computer, and not only his computer, they would find boxes that would have labels on them, and they would just find a smorgasbord of images on his computer. They would find a total of 4,500 images of Susan Powell. And almost all of these images were taken without her knowledge. Almost all of them were in a state of undress, her trying to use the bathroom, and close-ups of the intimate parts of her body, like her breasts, her buttocks, her groin, and so on. But that would not be the only thing the police would find, as they would also find pictures and images of naked women, but would have Susan's face plastered over the face. And they would also find over 1,000 images going as far back as 10 years. They would even find a file that would be labeled Neighbor's Bath 1 and Neighbor's Bath 2. And what Stephen would do is he would actually take photographs of the girls that he was neighbors with taking a bath, showing close-ups of their groin and their breasts. And just to give you an idea of how old these neighbors were, they were not adult neighbors that he lived next to. They were, in fact, the children that lived with their parents that were his neighbors. One was 10 and the other was 8. So maybe there is a reason Susan did not feel comfortable around her father-in-law, Stephen. Maybe there is a reason that she had a vibe that Stephen was a pedophile. And the police would uncover that Stephen actually was, in fact, a pedophile. Or if you want to use the actual term for these words of these type of people now, minor attracted people. And yes, that is the actual term. And right next to those images were actually videos and photographs of Stephen himself nude. There were also videos of him pleasuring himself most of which watching videos of Susan.